Hey guys, and welcome back to the show. I am your host, Megan Hardy, and I am the founder of Fitness Uncharted, which is a women's fitness and nutrition coaching company designed to help you build muscle, lose fat, improve your metabolism, and have complete food freedom. And speaking of food freedom, today's episode is going to be talking about how to go out to eat without the food guilt. So I'm going to give you my top 10 tips for eating out without guilt or without quote unquote falling off the plan. Okay. Because I think that's one thing that happens when we are eating out is we then have the guilt associated with it because we're like, wow, I just went completely balls to the walls and went off the rails, or this just didn't work into whatever nutrition plan I'm on or trying to do, and now I feel guilty about it. Even if I didn't go completely crazy, I know it's not serving me and my goals and I feel bad about it, right? So I don't know how to do both. So I'm going to give you some tips on that. And also want to share a quick little story for you. That was just funny today, made me laugh. It'll be a few weeks out by the time this recording posts, but my niece was voice messaging me from her mom's phone, aka my sister's phone. And she's like 10 years old. And she was asking me to send her a picture of my face and of my husband's face, Justin. And so I was like, okay, what do you need that for? And she was like, I'm doing a fun project. And then my sister later tells me on a phone call, she's like, it's some AI project. She's going to use your face and like it kind of changes it a little bit, whatever. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, does it need to be like just a normal picture? Like, does it need to be a straight face or like, is it a funny face? Or she's like, just a picture of your face. So I send a picture of myself. I send a picture of Justin. And then they also wanted pictures of the dogs' faces too, so they could do the dogs. So I send a picture of Oreo and a picture of Rolo. And then my sister starts sending all of these AI generated people from our faces in our family group chat. And it was hilarious because all of my family look so spot on. They just look like the AI version of them, right? Like very like just cool and like edgy, whatever, but like very spot on to what they actually look like. And, we're all like guessing who each person is, and it's completely obvious because everyone looks just a little bit different than their normal self with the AI version. Well, then we get to mine, and my sister sends mine last. And she goes, yeah, everyone was pretty spot on, besides you, Megan. For some reason, it wanted to make you look like a black girl with short hair. And I was like, what? And she sends it. It sends the photo. And I was like, man, these AI filters, they always, any ones that I've used, like I look completely different than what I actually look like. Uh, and I was like, man, these AI filters, they can't figure out my Caucasian Asian face. Like I have very like almond shaped eyes. I'm a white girl, but I have very dark hair. Like I have a little bit of Cherokee in me. So like very, very dark featured, dark hair, almond shaped eyes. Anyway, they can never figure it out. And I was dying laughing. I was like, the AI version of me was beautiful, but it was very much not my skin tone. And the teeth were all jacked up and stuff. I do have pretty like big teeth, but they were all funky. But I was like, hey, I am honored at the skin tone because I work very hard to try to stay tan as much of the year as possible. So I appreciate that it picked that up. But anyway, I thought that was hilarious. But let's jump into the topic. And I'm going to make this pretty quick, I think. And we're going to roll through some of these tips for you guys. So, tip number one is to plan for the meals that you're going to eat out. So, like, for instance, sometimes you have to hit the drive through because you have no other option, right? Like, sometimes you can't plan for what you have to eat out. That is true. But usually if you're really honest with yourself, if you have something coming up where you're going to have to hit a drive through, or if you have a girls' night or a date night or birthday parties or field trips, etc., coming up, then if you plan for it, then you can work it into your calorie and macro quote unquote budget for the day. So you can figure it out in advance. And that's what I always tell. This is exactly what I tell my clients is when you're planning for something, you don't need to feel bad about it when you follow through on it. Like if I know I'm going to Chick-fil-A, like and I plan for that, I go to Chick-fil-A and I enjoy Chick-fil-A and I probably have Chick-fil-A sauce and I don't feel bad about it. Like because I planned for it and I knew it was coming in and into my day and I worked it in. So especially if you are someone tracking macros and calories, then this is really helpful so you can still hit your nutrition targets but have that food. And again, be honest with yourself. A lot of times I will hear like, oh my gosh, I'm just an on the go person. I have kids' sports and things like that. Well, you do know what the kids' sports schedule is, right? So, like, okay, let's plan and prepare for that. First of all, what food can we bring in the car? What can we pack? Let's pack a cooler, things like that. Let's bring leftovers from dinner the night before. There's other options there. But then also, okay, you have that coming up. Let's figure out the rest of your day. Let's figure out, if it's your dinner meal, you're going to have to eat out on the go. Let's go ahead and pre track. So go ahead and plug in what you plan to eat for breakfast, lunch, and snacks. And then also what you plan to eat at whatever restaurant you're probably going to hit up. So if that's fast food or a dine in restaurant, whatever, go ahead and plug it in and see, make sure you can still fall within your nutrition goals, right? So plan ahead and you don't have to feel guilty about it. Number two is never go hungry. So this especially applies if you are like going out to eat, for instance. So this one will save you from overindulging on the free bread and chips. Hello, Mexican restaurants, right? I'm like, OMG. Like, if you look at those chips and actually think of them all as like little tortillas, like slices of tortillas that are just like fried down, you're like, oh my gosh, I just ate like my whole day's worth of calories in this basket of chips. And if you're like me and my husband, then you guys, for just the two of you, probably have them bring a refill of chips too, right? Or maybe two or three refills of chips. So, the part of that is just being munchy or hungry. But if you don't go hungry, you'll be less likely to overindulge on the bread, the chips, the appetizer things leading up to the meal out. What you want to do is you want to prioritize protein throughout the day so you can say no to the dinner rolls and save your calories for the main course. So this is something like another one I think of as Texas Roadhouse. I don't know if you have that where you live. If not, I'm sorry, it's delicious. And the bread is especially delicious because of the bread rolls and the freaking honey, cinnamon, whatever butter that they use. It is so good. And honestly, the roll is just a vehicle to get that butter in my mouth because it's so good. So sometimes I do enjoy the rolls, right? Because they are actually really good. That's part of the reason why I go to Texas Roadhouse sometimes, to be honest. But if I am trying to, say I'm in a fat loss phase or I am trying to be more diligent and intentional with my nutrition, I've already, planned in my week where I'm going to have a little more indulgences, and this is not one of them. Then I want to prepare myself for this meal, even if let's say it is at Texas Roadhouse and I'm like, oh my gosh, I know I'm going to want those rolls. Well, guess what I'm definitely not going to do is I'm not going to go hungry. So this is where the whole save your calories for the end of the day thing does not work in your favor. Like go ahead and again, like I said, have high protein meals, very wholesome, high protein, whole food meals leading up to your meal out. And also prioritizing like even more like high volume foods and vegetables, stuff like that, where you can, not go overboard with calories leading up to this meal. If you do know it's going to be a higher calorie meal, it is wise to save a little bit extra calorie space for it, but you don't want to go like completely empty stomached or hungry, right? So prioritize your veggies, your fiber, your protein, and you're going to have way more self-discipline going into that meal than you would if you were starving, right? So that's tip number two. Number three is to look up the menu ahead of time and pre-track your meal in an app like MyFitnessPal. So kind of touched on this one, but this is where like doesn't matter if you know the restaurant or not. Like Texas Roadhouse, I know what I'm probably going to order, but I can still look it up, right? And plug it into an app. Or especially if you don't know a restaurant, see if they have their menu posted online and then look it up and pre-track it into whatever app you're using. So like I use my Fitness Pal. I also have an in-app tracker with my Fit You app for clients. There's Chronometer, there's Macros First, there's a bunch of options, right? Whatever, tracking app you're using, plug it in. And some chain restaurants, they'll have those meals in there. Others, or like if it's let's say it's a mom and pop restaurant, it probably doesn't have it in the app. So that's where I always say look up something similar. So for instance, if I was going to like a, mom and pop, um, like Italian restaurant, and I was going to get some lasagna of whatever kind. I don't know. You could be more specific than that. But I was going to get lasagna. And this mom and pop restaurant, they're still using cash. They don't even have like credit card machines, right? So, like, they're not going to have an online website. I am going to go and find a similar restaurant or search for a similar item in my Fitness Pal that's close to it. So for me, I might go like look up like an Olive Garden lasagna dish and plug that in just so I have something. And then I'll give you another tip as far as how to estimate or overestimate for these kind of dishes. But that's where at least you have something in there and you can go off of that. So pre-tracking is really helpful. And then what I would do is go ahead and plug in what you think you're going to have at your dinner meal or your restaurant meal, and then work backwards for the day to make sure that you can still hit your protein goals and calorie goals and all of that with having the dish at the restaurant that you want to have, right? So that's how you can ensure that you're going to hit your nutrition goals for the day. And then um, tips number four, I think we're on number four, right? Ask for dressing and sauces on the side. So this again applies if you, oh my gosh, the dogs are trying to get into the office right now. I shut them out and they're scratching and barking at the door. We're leaving them out right now though, because they are being crazy. But number four is ask for dressing and sauces on the side so that you can control the amount. So, as a rule of thumb, try to choose more entrees that have like a tomato or vinegar based sauce instead of the creamy sauces. If you're trying to go more like low calorie or a little bit more macro friendly, then you're probably going to avoid as much of the high fat stuff if you're going more to tomato or vinegar based versus the really creamy sauces. However, if you planned to indulge, then you enjoy that fettuccine Alfredo, girl, like live it up and lick the bowl clean. Okay. So if you planned for it and that's your like your date night or your indulgence or whatever, enjoy. That's also where the balance and the food freedom piece comes in. But if you are trying to stick within certain macro or nutrition targets, then opt for dressings and sauces on the side. And then really just try to drizzle or pour as much on as you as little on as possible for you to still really enjoy the dish, right? So just try that way you can minimize the amount that's on there and you still want it to be flavorful and yummy, but maybe you don't have to use as much as the chefs in the back would have if they were mixing it all together themselves, right? So that's a really easy one. And then number five is to avoid dishes with the words buttered, fried, breaded, pan fried, crispy, or sauteed, as this usually just means it's cooked in lots of butter and oil. So that's where like something like grilled might be a better option or alternative, right? Or you could also, if it is being sauteed, you could ask what is it being sauteed in, right? So, and maybe they can make some swaps for you. But if you're avoiding some of those like buttered, fried types of words or crispy, like, think when you go to a restaurant and you're getting a salad, they have like crispy, you can get the crispy chicken on top or you can get grilled chicken on top. A really easy, thing to do is get your grilled chicken on top instead of crispy, right? Again, this is if you're trying to go the more nutritional route versus the indulgent route, right? Number six is make healthy swaps. So if you want I'm having a hard time saying that right now. I like want to say booger, a burger. If you want a burger, maybe do one, one of those B words, a burger maybe do that and a side salad instead of the burger and fries. I don't know why that's so hard right now. But maybe like swap the fries for a side salad, right? You could still have the burger. Um, but get your nutrients in from the side salad. It's also going to be lower calorie. And again, if your side salad, you can choose to have dressing on the side and control that as well, right? Or another example would be like doing a sandwich in a fruit cup instead of the sandwich and chips. So you can avoid like the fried food from the chips and you can have the sandwich and the, more nutrient dense fruit cup with your sandwich, right? So make healthy swaps. Look at what kind of bread they're using. Can you choose a healthier bread option? And that can go a really long ways too, especially if you're someone. I have a lot of clients who do a lot of traveling, and it is just inevitable. They're going to have to eat out and eat out more than may be ideal, right? Especially for someone, if you are in a fat loss phase, I always say the goal should be like eating out like 0 to 1 times a week. Like, because your fat loss phases shouldn't be super duper long. They need to be quick and efficient. Get in, get out, and get on with it, right? So you can go back to eating at maintenance, building muscle, enjoying a life a little bit more, right? But you need to be a little more heads down in your cut or fat loss phase. Well, depending on my client, they might have to eat out more than that, more than 0 to 1 times a week, right? And that's just their life. Like that's just their schedule, what they have to do. I have a lot of flight attendants, traveling nurses, sales professionals, things like that, where they are on the go a lot more. So this kind of stuff comes in really, really helpful when you just have to survive, right? And you have to eat what is available to you, but there's almost always healthy swaps that you can make, right? Number 7 is this is the tip I was going to give you, is overestimate the total calories of your meals at restaurants by at least 10 to 15%. So when you're going and you're looking up that Texas Roadhouse or Olive Garden dish, whatever, when you plug that in, overestimate the total amount, however it's listed in MyFitnessPal, but the total calories or serving size, right? Overestimate that by at least 10 to 15%, because what is happening is the chefs in the back, they are not meticulously measuring every ingredient, and you will be better off overestimating than underestimating, because they're just whipping stuff up, right? They're used to making things, so everything is going to be variable when it comes out of the kitchen. So, and what they're listing on the menu when it says, XYZ dish, I don't know. I'm just thinking of salad again, but it says this salad is 900 calories. Probably more than that, because they're like, let's just pour these, candied almonds on top. Let's just pour this like dried apple crisps on top. Let's just pour this dressing on top. Let's pour this and this, right? Like they're just whipping it up. Okay. So overestimate is always going to be better than underestimating when you are going out to eat. And this especially applies if you have to do it more frequently than what is ideal. So we'd rather have you overestimate and then potentially be, under your calorie goal for the day than than underestimating all the time, right? So that comes in super handy. And then number 8 is don't be afraid to ask your server for substitutions. I know some of you guys out there do not even want to tell your server when something does not taste good. I get it. You're like, it's fine. They come by and you hate it and it tastes like freaking, I don't know, leather. And, they've totally overdone your steak or whatever it is. And you're like, oh my gosh, I can barely chew it. And they're like, how is it? And you're like, it's delicious. Everything's great. Thank you. Okay, people pleasers, we need to have a sit down real quick. But, or you need someone like me at the table with you who will speak up on your behalf. But don't be afraid to ask your server for substitutions. Okay. Like grilled chicken instead of fried chicken, or they could cook your veggies without oil or butter, things like that. And it's okay to ask them how many ounces are in that steak or salmon as well. So, it doesn't always list that on the menu, like, especially if you're doing like it on top of your salad or whatever. So you could ask them those questions as well. Like, feel free to have that communication with your server. They can go back if they don't know the answer, they can go back and ask the kitchen for an answer for you. And then the worst thing they could tell you is they don't have another alternative or option. But again, they almost always do. So you can ask for some of these substitutions from your server and don't be afraid to. I know that's one thing that actually that Coach Christy, who works with me in the Fit U, she always when she goes to restaurants, like her go-to if she's really trying to eat for purpose, and that's her quote as well. She says, "Are you eating for purpose or eating for pleasure?" Because sometimes you need to eat more for a purpose, right? If you have certain fitness and nutrition goals, you need to eat for purpose, right? Other times it really is more for pleasure. So know that as well when you're going into a restaurant. Is this more so like for purpose, or is this like, did I plan to have this indulgence, right? But for her, one of her go-tos is she will order a la carte, like chicken breast, broccoli on the side, and a sweet potato. A naked sweet potato that she dresses up with some cinnamon, and I don't know what else she puts on it if she does. And then grilled chicken and broccoli. And I think she might ask them to not even like butter the broccoli because, again, depends on what they cook it in, right? Could be adding a bunch more calories that you don't know are there, which you probably will notice the difference because it's going to taste better if it's got the butter on it, but still. But she'll order that a la carte and can get that a lot of restaurants that they go to. So there's oftentimes, like even looking at the menu, look for those a la carte items that are going to help you fit your goals. It doesn't necessarily have to be a specific menu item, right? Like if they say they can do this whole dish that includes, I don't know, chicken and this and that and potatoes and whatever. Well, guess what? They could also just cook you up a piece of chicken. Like that is a possibility because they obviously have chicken in house, right? So, as far as them, being able to figure out how to bill you for it, sometimes that can be a conversation, but like most of the time, they can very easily a la carte things. So, number 9 is you do not have to finish it all. This is me speaking to myself because I always clear my plate. Always, always. But just know that you can split the meal with someone or take half home. For me, it's more realistic to split a meal with someone than take half home because, again, my eyes are bigger than my stomach. And if it's still in front of me, I'm probably going to finish it. So for me, if I was splitting with someone, that would be helpful. So it's just gone, right? But that's an option, especially if you know it's going to be a big portion, split a meal with someone. Or if you're the person, go ahead and stop yourself. Maybe even while you're still consuming the meal, go ahead and ask the server to put half in a box, right? Or ask them to bring you a box so you can put half in a box. So that way you see what you have and you don't finish the rest, right? You see the half that's on your plate and you finish that and you bring the rest home. This is also great and budget friendly too, you guys. So this can be another meal for you versus eating it all in this one sitting. So you don't have to finish it all. Another thing with that too is if you are trying to eat for purpose, then go ahead and make sure you're eating the veggies and the high protein stuff on your plate first before you get full. So like that's where that comes into play too. Try to like get the most, nutrient dense things that are going to be the most beneficial to you and leave maybe the mashed potatoes and the mac and cheese and that kind of stuff for the end. If you're worried that you maybe aren't going to be able to eat the whole thing, try to get the more nutrient dense stuff first and the more macro friendly stuff. And then tip number 10, and lastly, also just enjoy the dang meal. Okay. If you plan for it, then you do not have to feel guilty about it. Yay, that's such a beautiful thing. That's where, again, like in my intro for this podcast, right? Like we talk about like losing body fat, building muscle, improving your metabolism, and having food freedom. And this is a part of the food freedom piece. I have had clients come into my program who are like, whenever I'm tracking food, I feel really guilty about going out to eat. And I'm like, okay, that's one of the first things we need to work on, right? Because that's not food freedom. Like macros, if you haven't listened to the episode that talks about tracking macros for food freedom, that's literally the title. Go back and listen to that because there's a way to track macros and do this whole thing that actually creates more freedom in your life versus feeling more restricted. Okay. We won't get into that now, but if you're someone who feels like bad about eating out, especially when you've planned for it, you don't need to. And use these tips that can actually help you stay on track. Or if you're planning for it, you can be a little more indulgent and you've planned for it. So you don't have to feel bad about it, right? Like that is such a beautiful thing. So if you want help with this, if you want more as far as like one on one coaching, you can apply for coaching in the show notes. There's a link. You can schedule a free consult call with me and we'll talk more about your goals. We can help you through some of this stuff and help you find the food freedom component along with reaching your fitness goals because that's super, super important. That's how it's going to be sustainable, right? Like if you actually enjoy this whole eating thing, makes it a lot better. But at the end of the day, if you planned for that meal, if you planned for that meal that you're eating out, just go and enjoy it. Like the last thing that you should be feeling when you're going on date night or it's your anniversary or whatever is going and dreading having to track your meal or dreading, oh my gosh, just feeling guilt about what you chose. And that's where we also tell clients, especially when you are being very diligent with tracking all the rest of the time, we actually will intentionally be like, please don't track that meal. It doesn't even matter when you're being consistent 80 to 90% of the rest of the time. You can just enjoy the meal and you don't even need to track it. Okay. So that's also like know yourself, or if you're working with a coach, like have these conversations so that you can actually intentionally not track meals and just simply choose some meals and foods for pleasure because that's that balance piece, right? So, anyway, I hope this was helpful, you guys. Spitfired 10 tips for you for eating out. There's probably more I'm missing that I talk about with my clients, but that's a good start for you. So, anyway, I hope this was helpful and I'll catch you on the next episode.